Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand TV. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal brand and business development company. I want to take you on a journey through another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal stories, business conversations, and tips to improve your brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand TV series, you will differentiate yourself from the competition and build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build confidence, and reflect who you are. Building your 5-star personal brand is a great way to improve your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or any of my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh@5starbdm.com. Now, let's begin with our next episode on the Follow the Brand TV.
Five-Star BDM, Brand Development Masters, is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for the small to mid-sized business and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share business development challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement and operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. This results in more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Visit www.5starbdm.com today to learn more.
Artificial intelligence is not just another technology trend. This isn't just about technology. This is a $2 trillion paradigm shift. Yet most organizations are missing the mark with their AI strategies. Many enterprises are investing in the wrong layer of AI, chasing the idea of human-like AI agents. I haven't met an agent yet, other than my agent at the airport when I'm trying to change my flight. The concept of an agent is not the solution. Richie explains there are 3 layers to the AI economy: the producers, the appliers, and the consumers. Most people are betting on the wrong layer. To succeed, you need to understand where real value is created. We are trading a high-friction, perfect experience for a low-friction, wide, imperfect one. The age of deterministic perfection is ending. The era of intelligent probability has begun. Are we ready for mathematics without guarantees? Human plus AI could be the biggest game changer on the planet. The window is closing. Early movers have 12 to 18 months before probabilistic systems become table stakes. Join the conversation that's redefining leadership in the AI era. Subscribe to Follow the Brand podcast, where Grant McGaugh decodes the future with the visionaries building it.
Welcome, everybody, to the Follow the Brand podcast. This is your host, Grant McGaugh. And I am going to speak to what I call one of my most favorite futurists when it comes to technology that I've spoken to probably in the last 4 years. And why do I say that? I say that because I've been part of the HIMSS organization, the Health Informatics System Society, and that's in healthcare, that's in technology. And I was able to meet a gentleman named Richie Etwaru, and he was talking to me about different kinds of technology. Remember, this was 3 years ago. AI had not really blown up. These LLMs, it wasn't blown up then. But he framed discussions around how technology and nation states and where the power plays are and where people will fall into in a way that I've never heard before. And his complete understanding of how artificial intelligence actually operates at a simplistic level, I thought was just an honor to hear him speak. So I want to have him speak again to me and you about how he sees this new world and how we can all take advantage of it. So, Richie, I should say, you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, first of all, Grant, thanks for having me, and hello to all of Grant's viewers. I had an opportunity to meet this man about 3 years ago, and I got to tell you, one of the hardest interviews I did with him at that time. So I look forward to being batted around a little bit here. Just a little bit of background on me. I live in the U.S. I've been living in the U.S. probably for a little bit over 30 years now. I was born in Guyana, South America, ex British colony. Probably 51% tech, 49% business operator. Um, I've done a ton of stuff with transforming businesses, going through IPOs, starting companies, working in private equity, writing books, doing speeches and stuff like that. I think the one thing I would say to start this conversation is that I've been referred to as a futurist over the last maybe 25, 30 years and have made quite an impact in that area. But today futurists are out of work because the future's here. And even if you try to forecast the future, it's moving so fast that you're being held to your word. So, 5 years ago, if you're a futurist, you could forecast out 20 years. And if you're wrong, nobody cares because you would have probably retired by then, right? Now, if you're forecasting out 5 years out, we're going to find out whether you're right or not by December. Right. So the dynamic of managing this horizons of time, right? When you think about how time and culture and industry moves together, the pace has changed, which is changing everything. Something as simple as whether you're a futurist or not.
I agree with you. Another colleague of mine, Christopher Lafayette, brought something to my attention when he said, and this was COVID time, right? This is like 2019. We all had to participate in a human experiment, whether we liked it or not. And we had to test our tech, meaning cloud computing, yeah, mobile computing, yeah. Now we're starting to see, can we do it at scale when it came to communication, video transference? You started to see the rise of metaverse. I mean, we can totally live almost in a digital type society and do trade and commerce within that society. That was the metaverse world. We have morphed since then. We're starting to like flex our muscles a little bit. And I'll coin a statement you told me. We're releasing a new, like, and I'm gonna call it almost a species, an animal into our world, artificial intelligence. We're releasing this out. It's been the most adopted technology in human history. This is huge. Faster than cloud computing, faster than mobile computing, faster than electricity. From your lens, what you're seeing now, because what I'm seeing coming on my horizon is agentic AI. You came out with the tele. I'm starting to see others come out with certain tools that are coming. Hey, this is an all-in-one tool. It can interact with you. It can speak to you. It can do certain human-like functions to take what it's a tier one, tier two off the table. It's blowing up the BPO world. How do you see this technology operating?
Well, it's a broad question. I'm going to try to answer it the way you eat an elephant, one piece at a time. Um, just for, I guess, a little comedic relief, um, I would argue that AI is not the fastest adopted technology in the world.
Okay.
But emojis were the fastest adopted technology in the world. As soon as you saw an emoji, you knew what to do with it right away, and you were absolutely fluid. Now, yes, of course, it doesn't have the gravitas on the implication as artificial intelligence. But again, for some comedic relief here on the
Truth is truth.
Grant McGrath show, so to speak. Um, there's a lot that has already been said, so let me try to focus on maybe what ought to be said that might have not been said.
Yeah.
Um, One of the reasons why AI has been adopted so quickly, and maybe we'll cover three reasons why the speed is there. Um, First, technology is something that builds on itself. And for if you were involved in technology at any point, you must have seen some experience where the thing that you were doing at the time was then used to create the next thing that you're going to do and was used to create the next thing that you're going to do. So even as simple as like the Fortran compiler, right? In some ways, C++ was written in Fortran, right? Java was written using C++, right? JavaScript was written using Java, right? So like you use the tools that are commoditized to create the next frontier, the next advancement that creates competitive frontier, right? Now, if you think about the internet, a lot of plumbing and infrastructure had to be in place for someone to consume the internet. Wires on the ground, fiber optic cables, cell towers, chips, electric capacity, hardware had to be shipped, multilingual things had to be figured out before you got the internet. So, if you think about any third world country, I'll just pick Guyana for a second. Guyana got electricity about 40 years after Europe and the US got electricity, right? So you've kind of are left behind for a while. Artificial intelligence, however, the platform was already there. You had a mobile phone, you had internet already, right? And so, the 5 billion people that are already pre-connected to the internet and have a mobile device were able to uptake AI from the time that you found out about it to the time that it takes to either hit the OpenAI mobile browser application, which was the first, or download an app from the App Store, right?
Yeah.
That was the uptake time. And that's why you see this massive uptake of individuals. And I think what's the next point as to why I think the adoption was so easy is that OpenAI did something that is the core of the craft, which is to productize it, right? Artificial intelligence, as it relates to foundational models and it relates to machine learning and deep learning, was there for a while. Not as good as the foundational models that OpenAI's foundational model set forth, which started a competitive race. Not as good. But what was there was that it was never productized for mass consumption. If you wanted to run a model prior to ChatGPT, you kind of had to have MATLAB running, right? You had to download a bunch of stuff on a desktop. You needed to understand how the flux capacitor of every button works. And then the outcome was a large text file with weights in it. It's just not accessible. All right. What OpenAI did, which is to start a for-profit company to be able to create funding to fund the nonprofit company, was to consume their models and productize it as a chatbot.
Mhm.
And that productizing of a chatbot is, to me, the brilliance of OpenAI, not necessarily the core LLM underneath, although they did start the arms race by differentiating significantly. When you make a product that everybody already knows how to use, they know how to chat. Who here doesn't know how to send a text to someone and record and get a text back, right? And then to find the right place to do it, which is these language models, these foundational models, and I want to talk about probabilism after this.
Sure.
They're imperfect. So how do you productize imperfection?
Mhm.
Right. A chatbot is a really interesting way to productize imperfection because there's no good answer, that there's no perfect answer that has to come back. All
Right.
right. And so
Yeah.
that's another reason why we saw that speed of adoption of it. And the third is something that you'd mentioned earlier in your preamble here to this question, which is mankind now has a thirst for technology in the future. When we went through COVID, everybody from my mom to the guy who works in my local hardware store here in a small town that I live in, everybody saw the power of technology,
Mhm.
whether it was through Instacart deliveries or the forms that we all filled out to get vaccines earlier, or going to I forgot what was the website that gave you all the stats of how many deaths it was.
Oh, yeah. I think it was the U.S. government or one of them, but yeah.
Whatever it was, right? Everybody got to see the value of technology, not just this sort of soft, flimsy sort of magic of it, or the excitement of it, or the dopamine hit of it, or the vanity advancements of it, but the actual utility of it. And so we come out of COVID now, and we've all, as an aggregate, I would say as an aggregate, we've tripled our awareness and our appreciation for the utility of technology. We come out of COVID, everyone's like, okay, where's the future? This is great. You guys have been talking for tech so long. We're ready for it. What's up? Where's the future, man? Right? So you have that thirst sort of waiting in society to adopt this. And I think it's those three kind of pieces of that storm that came together that created this massive transition of human awareness and this reminder that we are evolving. What AI really reminds us all at the core is that we are an evolving species. We are constantly evolving, and we're all living through the internet again. We're living through electricity again. We're living through the printing press again. And so everyone, I believe, on the planet in some way is now aware of the fact that we're living in a pretty pivotal point of history.
There's no question about that. I call it it's a leveler, let's say like that, of economies of scale, where, like, let's say if you were an oil baron, let's just say, you had a certain amount of control. If you're a real estate baron, you had a certain amount of control. Technology has now given a whole new level of control to a whole new set of individuals that aren't oil barons, and they didn't own massive real estate, but they have massive value. For the first time in human history, we have an evaluation of a company of $1 trillion. That's almost unbelievable when you think about it. People say, well, it's taken certain people a long time to get what you would call economic advantage. And then I say, you know what? A lot of these companies right now in the NASDAQ, or you look at the Fortune 5, those top 10, and we call them the Magnificent Seven, haven't been around for hundreds of years. These are newer type technological advancements that have taken these companies to a whole nother level. When I think of Mobius, this is in my opinion, when I first saw the air glass, I said, all right, somebody's actually thinking out of the box, because it's almost like when I saw the Google, goggles that I could say they came out for metaverse viewing. I said, I don't know. It reminded me of the 8-track. I don't know how long that's going to last, but we'll see. The 8-track player. But you said, hey, let's take the glasses off and still have what we want, which is digital interaction in a physical space, and just kind of an expanded awareness of what we can do. Right? Very cool stuff. Now you've come out, I mean, this is a big word, and this is also taken off. First time I heard of agentic AI was probably about a year ago. And it's just an explosive type tech where people are looking at it in many different ways. You've taken it, and I like your viewpoint. You're taking like, hey, and I'll go back to the Microsoft from the IBM world. I'm not reinventing the computer. I'm making it easier to use. You seem to be making this kind of tech easier to use. What's your opinion on these things?
Well, look, my career has been about reinventing user interfaces my entire career. While I was at Prudential Securities, which is now Wachovia, I worked extensively on connecting the CICS mainframe green screens to the Visual Basic compiler to start to build point and click apps for brokers to be able to have information faster and better workflow as they serviced investors to the brokerage business of Prudential Securities. And that was the first patent, and it got very interesting between Microsoft and IBM. But that was my first time recognizing that user interfaces will change. The second time I did that was at Lehman Brothers, where reporting, so client reporting, was very static. Everybody got the same PDF, the same design of a PDF. And, I focused my energy there on figuring out dynamicism of PDFs. How do you get a banking statement that has a pie chart of your asset allocation on page one, but somebody else gets a bar chart of their asset allocation on page one because they want to see their data differently, or their portfolio is better displayed as a bar chart versus a pie chart? And that was the second time I kind of reoriented user interfaces from static reports to sort of personalized reports. Again, another patent, another kind of partnership with Adobe, and today everybody has personalized PDFs. I did it again at UBS. I won't bore everybody with that, around working with Apple to put the first wealth management app on the iPad at the time of the iPad unveiling by Apple. When you met me, the thesis there was that the screens will become more engaging. And as I was founding the company, I had decided to call the company Meta, META. And right before I set out to kind of start, taking the company forward, Facebook renames itself to Meta. And I had no interest in the metaverse. I was pretty sure that we're not going to strap toasters to our head for a pretty long period of time. And so, in some ways, Zuckerberg irritated me to get into the metaverse by naming Facebook Meta. Now, I'm nowhere the size and scale of Zuckerberg. He doesn't know that I exist, but that's what happened. He irritated the hell out of me. And so I thought, well, what's this stupidness anyway about the metaverse? Why would anybody do this? And so that was the first time I actually thought, maybe there's something here. Okay. And I looked at it and I said, there's no way the headsets work. We ought to be able to get the screens to give us more. And the long and short of it, 40 patents after, I was able to devise a way to use computer vision, to use the screens that you and I are looking at right now, to be immersive and interactive at the same time. And essentially, I built a version of the metaverse that didn't need the headset.
Yeah.
Right. I'm really not interested in that. And so as the metaverse winded down and we were using computer vision a lot, I started going back to my original thesis, which is why I founded the company, which is how can we get more from the screen? It has nothing to do with immersivity and interactivity. And so today, Mobius is back to its original thesis. I got sidetracked by Zuckerberg, who irritated me on the name. And where we are today is that I am looking again at the user interface.
Yeah.
One of the nets of artificial intelligence is that the user interface is going to change.
Yeah.
And to put it into context, Google changed the user interface by putting a search bar, right? The user interface of AI is going to be a microphone icon.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Talk, turn it on, or turn it off, right? The mouse and the keyboard will still have a place, similar to how engineers have a place in the IDE today, right? Or in black and white terminals. And so what we're doing at Mobius today is we're really focusing on that user interface. What is the intelligent user interface? Now, I won't talk too much about that solution. I could connect with folks afterwards. But the value for your audience is to try to parse the artificial intelligence market today to know where you want to make your bets. And generally, when these big industrial revolutions come about, and you were talking about oil, it's the same thing. You can parse it into three verticals. You've got the producers of the new utility. You've got the appliers of the new utility, and you've got the consumers of the new utility, right? So you've got the producers of AI, right? And a whole supply chain in there. I put the silicon and the training in the production bucket. So NVIDIA and OpenAI, I have them in the same bucket, so to speak, right? Hyperscalers, I kind of pop them in there as well. The appliers of artificial intelligence is where I sit. Let's take the core utility that's being produced by others. By all means, pay them their cogs, make them a part of the supply chain, but apply it to do something completely unique and different, right?
Yeah.
Not dissimilar from how Amazon applied the internet without spending $1 on building the internet, right? And then you have the consumers of artificial intelligence. What's also different here and how your audience wants to navigate, whether you're a producer of AI and be smart about your capital investment there and who you're competing against and whether there's a David and Goliath game to play there. I'd argue that there's a very low likelihood that a David and Goliath game could be played out on the production side. I feel like that side is already locked up, right? On the applier side, man, a lot of David and Goliaths are playing out on the application side, right? Large software companies that have been underserving their constituents for decades are now under attack because people are like, wait, what the hell? Why am I paying for a SaaS license that I'm not consuming? Where the interest is on the consumption side of artificial intelligence. And the consumption side has two things about it. One is you can consume it to build businesses.
Yeah.
Really fast. I'm talking about ridiculously fast, especially if you're building businesses that have some core digital component to it, right? And why is it that language models make it faster to build companies that have digital components? It's really simple. Language models were trained on the internet, and the internet is not only full of information, it's full of software code. When you read a website, there's JavaScript in there, there's cascading style sheets in there, there's HTML and DHTML in there, right? And so now language models are not just good at our language, they're good at the language of the machine.
Yeah.
And so building apps, building websites, building workflows, building marketing streams are all as easy to kick out as the answer to, what color is the sky? And so that's what makes this consumption side so much more interesting because it lowered the barrier to entry. And the other part of it is the productivity hack, right? Not only is it helping you build businesses faster, it's helping you do what you do today faster. And the internet didn't have that acute differentiation on the consumption side. Yes, it commoditized distance significantly, but you can't build a business because you were just able to commoditize distance. You still had to go through the mechanics of a highly capital intensive sort of thing. And so that I think when you look at the AI market from that perspective, and again, I'm playing in that applying AI layer for the benefit of the consumer's AI layer because I see the user interface transitioning from where we are today to where it's going. And that's where maybe we could talk about probabilism in that user interface. But I think for an audience, I think that is a reasonably good way to evaluate risk and opportunity within where we are today.
I want to expound on what you just said, especially toward the end. Understanding at the end of that whole thing, you have a human, and then you have what we are calling now in AI, artificial intelligence, or what I'm calling now it's a better technology. It's a tool. Now, I say that to say this. Remember this: in our human history, most people agree, humans took a great leap in their environment when they discovered fire, right? AI is a type of fire, right? And if you know how to apply the fire, because you can take the fire, you can burn the forest down, or you can cook your food, right? If you know how to manage the fire, be responsible, accountable, you understand the nuances of the fire, you know what it could do, what it couldn't do, you know that, hey, if I put water on the fire is going to go out. But the fire also consumes oxygen. It consumes a lot of things. A lot of people probably don't realize that a human being does. You've got a fire is a living thing, right? So I say that to say this. We are now starting out with from the human component or reality operating with a technology that everybody can now utilize. And to your point, I myself can make businesses where before I didn't have that capability. Right now we're on an interface. You didn't have, you had to have mass capital resources to do radio, to do television, to do mass media. The barrier has been significantly lowered. So if you as a human knows how to operate or drive, I'm going to say, this technology, this AI, and you realize, like you said before, the building blocks are already in place. So you don't have to be a coder. You don't have to understand how the internet actually works to a certain degree in the back end, but you got to know how to drive. And if you're making it easier for me to get behind the wheel of a AI engine, I see incredible transformation that can change the world as we know it. And I've always said this. I have a lot of younger people that ask me a lot and ask my opinion, like, well, Grant, what do you think my purpose is? And I always say this, especially the younger folks, your purpose is to change the world. I've already lived in this world for 60 years. I know what it's like. I've gone through changes in how we do things. Your job is to change it even further. I'm going to point this to you because I like how you had that comic relief right around the emoji, right? I remember sitting there watching the Jetsons, and they would have a communicator that looked a whole lot like your air glass. You know, it would just be an image out of thin air that you would interact with. I truly believe that man's imagination, when it could be productized, could be one of the greatest advancements in human history. So I want you to, if you don't mind, help me unpack some of this, because what I'm saying is this: human plus AI could be the biggest game changer on the planet.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think based on what we know today, you know, I never underestimate 100 years out. You know, there could be something even bigger, and no one knows what it is. Arguably, it could be interplanetary travel, right? Could be even bigger. Again, thinking about this might be an organics, a second organic species, not a first digital species, right? As we refer to it here. Let's talk about the trade-off that we're making, all right? And I'm going to focus on the trade-off specifically from an enterprise and a technology perspective. I think your audience sits in that center of gravity a little bit. So there is a fundamental difference between what we did with the internet and what we're going to do with artificial intelligence as it's specific to generative artificial intelligence. There's many other types of AI, computer vision, for example, right, is a different story. But when you want to come to terms with what is different, I would suggest that you start here. In the internet world, we used deterministic mathematics. And in deterministic math, 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. And you can guarantee that 1 plus 1 will always be equal to 2. You can guarantee it. With generative AI, which is probabilistic math, not deterministic math, but probabilistic math, you cannot guarantee that 1 plus 1 will be equal to 2 every time. You can't. It'll be, because it's such an obvious thing, 1 plus 1 will be equal to 2 a lot, but you can't guarantee that it'll be every time because it's probabilistic. There's no such thing as a right or wrong answer. The only thing that's true about probabilistic math is that it must have an answer every time. And so that's why when you ask a probabilistic model for something, and language models are sort of like the codfish example, everybody knows what I'm going to use here, but let's take an image model. If I ask an image model to create me an image of a blue and red dog, it'll give me an awesome blue and red dog. Try to get that same dog again.
Yeah.
Zero chance to get that same dog again. Now, we have the same thing in language models. Ask it a question. If it's not too obvious of a question, try to get the same response every time. Zero chance. And so living in this probabilistic world, right, where you're trading off a deterministic relationship with technology for a probabilistic relationship with technology, now you start to see the difference of the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
For example, if we just take user interface for a second, in a deterministic world, you have an application that could do about 10 things, okay? And you must move your mouse precisely to here to click on this one button to do those 10 things. And you must wear your reading glasses to read the little text that's on the side to know which of those 10 things to do. Okay. So there's a high degree of friction to a deterministic relationship with technology. Okay. However, it's guaranteed that it's going to do 10 things and it's going to do those 10 things exactly the same way every single time. Bar none. In a probabilistic relationship with technology, the number is not 10. It could do a billion different things. Okay. And the friction is not high. The friction is remarkably low because you just speak.
Mm-hmm.
However, the perfection is not there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we are trading off a high friction, perfect, narrow, deterministic experience with a low friction, wide, imperfect experience. And that's the trade-off. It's because you've got probabilistic math on one side and deterministic math on the other side. Now, the artistry and the craft is to figure out the balance of those two to be able to make something of utility for mankind.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge is that as soon as you add 1 ounce of determinism into a probabilistic system, you lose a significant amount of the probabilistic value.
Wow.
Like if you say to a generative model, in this scenario, you must generate the same thing every single time, you essentially stifle the intelligence to the ground. And that's the core that we have to understand.
I'm glad you brought me back to one of my most favorite things I ever studied in high school, which was physics. I loved physics. I wasn't great at it. I got actually a C in the class, but was my favorite class of all because of those things you just talked about. My teacher would tell us all the time, there is no right and wrong answer. I'm more interested how you got to your answer than what the answer actually is. I want you to use your critical thinking and come up with something that's interesting because you can get outside the box, just like you were saying. So sometimes, and I always liked, I think Einstein brought it up, where, as you pointed, 1 + 1 = 2. But in his world, it doesn't. It equals what we call 3. What do you mean by that? Because you by yourself, you're one entity. Me by myself, I'm one entity. And if we both operate in those separate worlds, that is 1 + 1. You could kind of like 2. But we come together, there's a third reality that comes about. I'm going to call that this podcast discussion, right? Where we both could never really determine exactly what we were going to say and do and the answers, but it becomes a third reality. That's that +1. I believe there's a +1 in everything in life. There is. It's just, are you bold enough to engage with that reality? As I said earlier, the human plus the fire, if you know how to manage the fire, it's a great tool. But if you don't, you don't know exactly how it's going to go. Ask Elon Musk in his last $1 billion explosion that happened. There's a lot that could potentially go on. So as men, we're starting to get out of our deterministic world to a certain degree because everybody likes to stand on solid ground, right? But now you're saying, I'm going to stand on something. Now, I'm not sure if it's solid. Could be or couldn't be. But how do we get there? It's going to be a very interesting future, I believe, in the very near future. I want
Let me
to
just follow on to that very quickly. I was doing some work with the board, and to engage the board, I started by asking, deterministic math was arguably discovered by Newton in the 1650s. 1650s or 80s, 1850s. I don't remember, a 50. It won't matter to the story. And then I asked, when do you think probabilistic math was invented? And everybody was wrong. Everybody oriented to much later in history. Like within the last 50 years, right? People made bets there. It turns out probabilistic math was arguably discovered by Pascal within 10 to 20 years of deterministic math from Newton, really around the same time.
Mhm.
And this thing that you said that we need determinism as a species. What happened at the time is deterministic math picked up because the scientific revolution needed determinism, and probabilistic math never picked up because of the simple argument that God has to exist. There can't be any question around whether God exists. And so probabilistic thinking and probabilistic math, because there are no guarantees in the systems, ended up to be seen as like a little bit of a dark arts, if I may,
Wow.
right? A little bit of like a spooky kind of situation, a little bit too gamble-ish, and society at the time was not ready for probabilism. You know, are we ready for probabilism today? And it's going to come down to a couple of things. It's going to come down to one, um, what are the areas where probabilism works? And let's touch on how did we get to agents?
Mhm.
How did the concept of agents come about, which led to the largest word washing of my career, right? Talk about cloud washing and metaverse washing and mobile washing and internet and online washing. I've never seen washing like this. But when you think about the deterministic systems and the probabilistic systems again, right? And you say, okay, so a lot of our utility to build things that people will use sit in a deterministic world right now, exposed by API,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And then you've got this deterministic UI, which is if I click buy, it's incredibly determined that you must go call the buy API, right? Or if I click sort, you should go call the sort API. So
Yeah.
this very, very rigid relationship between actions in the user interface and execution of that intent in what we could arguably be called a system of records,
Mhm.
right? Now, a concept evolved in between the deterministic user interface and the deterministic APIs. And in that space in between is called model context,
Mhm.
which is if the UI is going to be driven by a language model or a conversational model, right? How does that probabilistic UI call deterministic APIs?
Yeah.
How do you know that someone meant to buy? Because the intention to buy is no longer determined by clicking the buy button. There could be
Yeah.
a million ways that you indicate that you want to buy. You could say, all right, let's go. And that means that you want to buy. You could go, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And that means that you want to buy, right? And so model context protocol is that thing that says, figure out what that person said. And then based on all APIs that you have available, that's where the model context, the MCP servers come in, which is, hey, what are all the APIs that are there and how are they interconnected? Describe them in an MCP server so that when the language model hears, I'll take it, it does a translation of that, look at the API and go, the only API that makes sense here is the buy API.
Yeah.
So the MCP, this model context protocol, is this membrane that's sitting between APIs and between a UI that's starting to expand that uses probabilism in the middle of two deterministic systems.
Mm. Mm.
And that's where the perception of agency is coming from.
Mm.
There's nothing sentient or agentic about a
Right.
system. The,
Yeah.
the concept of an agent is horseshit.
Right.
Okay? That probabilistic layer in between is creating the perception of autonomy. How
Mhm.
could it have known that when I said I'll take it, I meant buy? It's really simple. There's nothing agentic about it. I haven't met an agent as yet, other than like, the agent at the airport when I'm trying to change my flight. I have
Yeah.
not met an agent as yet, and I'm deep and wide in the space. It's complete horseshit.
I love how you said that. I think how I look at it is like this, and we're going to conclude here. But I had the similar, somewhat not as technical as you just described it. But what I was explaining to people is like when we're talking about in an AI-driven world, we're talking about something that's just mirroring human intelligence or behavior to a certain degree as we understand ourselves. So you're asking something. Here's the three things I look at. Something that is unconscious, that is the AI itself. It's unconscious to someone who's conscious, which is yourself. But then also you are operating in a subconscious world a lot too. When you start talking about how you're going to understand behavior or what drives you, it gets into deeper layer. So then you start saying, yeah, in our world, in the deeper context of what you call the natural world, and how we operate in everything around us. It's not so much deterministic. There's a lot going on, a lot more intelligence than just human intelligence that we're operating in. But we're starting to discover this, and then we're going to see how we're going to interoperate with it, let's say, collaborate, and understand how all this is going to work together. But you brought up some very, very good points, and that at some point in time, hopefully in the near future, we're going to have another conversation because we're ever evolving, you're ever evolving. And before I conclude, I want you to just kind of sum up what you feel about this particular podcast, and how do you feel about the Follow the Brand?
And how I feel about, sorry, the last word I missed.
Yeah, Follow the Brand, the Follow Brand podcast. How do you feel about this interview?
Well, look, I've been tracking you for a while, and what I like is your consistency and your perseverance. A lot of people build these types of, in some ways, philanthropic platforms to be able to help others along the way because of privilege or access that you may have. And most people fall off because it's hard. It's not easy. Getting guests is hard. Doing it every week is hard. Getting the courage to be able to engage in it and put your own brand out there is hard. And so I think your consistency and your perseverance marries what I do in the early stage venture world, right? In the early stage venture world, there's really only two ingredients: perseverance,
yeah,
and craziness. You have to be crazy.
That's a little bit out there, yeah.
You know, in some ways, and I say this self-deprecatingly, in some ways you have to be a special kind of stupid to do something like this, what you're doing and what I'm doing. You can't be born with this type of stupidity. You have to cultivate it, right? It's not nature can't make you this crazy to do things like this. So I really commend your perseverance and your commitment. That's what makes BDM what it is.
Thank you. I truly appreciate that. Before we let you go, you got to let us know how to contact you. You also say you're going to be upcoming. You're writing on Forbes. You're doing some things for Wire. Tell us what you got going on, Richie.
Well, I think a lot of what I'm going to be doing is as we get ready to come out of private beta, we're working with about a half a dozen or so Fortune 500 companies in a private beta at Mobius. Very, very exciting approach. Again, we're transitioning the entire user interface that you have, any website that you've ever had before, any document that you've ever had. We're changing it from a guided high friction experience.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, from a self-directed high friction experience. So if you think about marketing, you spend a lot of money to get people to your website and then you leave them alone, self-directed, right? Yeah. We're moving that to guided by putting this perception of personhood in it so that you feel like you're guided when you arrive at the website. What would you like? How can I help you? What do you want? Right? Using that same probabilism in the middle to create the perception of agency to understand something like, I'm ready to take it means that you want to buy. So the work that I'm doing right now is to start to bring forward the insights that informed the Mobius Tele, the instincts that informed the Mobius Tele, the deep understanding that informed the Mobius Tele, because I think part of it is I am dying to share what I've learned and kind of picked up over the last 4 or 5 years with the rest of the industry. And two is in a world where you're launching an artificial intelligence product, there's a lot of founder gravity that comes with it. So I'm getting into wires. Forbes has finally nudged me enough to start writing again. I got a piece in The Economist coming. I'm doing some board work. I'm doing some conference circuits and stuff like that because, I have to come out first before the product comes out.
I like that. See that personal brand. See that? Everybody asks me, why personal branding? What business branding? Like, you have to have a face of your brand to communicate effectively and simplistically. I mean, you simplify very hard concepts. And I think a lot of people are like, wow, I think I understood what he just said this last hour, right? I think that's wonderful. I am going to send you pictures from Guyana when I get down there, because this is going to be wonderful. Take you home just a little bit, show you what I'm seeing down there. And then hopefully we'll circle back and before the end of the year and have another good, intelligent conversation. And I want to thank you again for being on Follow the Brand. I want to encourage all of your followers to follow us at 5-Star BDM. That's the number 5. That Star BDM is B for brand, D for development, Informasters.com. I want to thank you again for being on the show.
Man, who's your favorite podcaster? Man, Grant, man. I love Grant's podcast. Well, who's Grant? I'm going to send you the link. I love Grant.
I love the interview. I've done a lot of these, and this is a great one. It's always great to talk to people who know what they're doing, and it's clear you're a great host, and you've done this many times before.
I feel great that we're having this conversation here. Met a new person in business who I previously didn't know.
It was an amazing podcast. Grant is an amazing interviewer. I learned a lot.
I really enjoyed this. Great questions, great talk track. Super appreciate you having me on. It's been a very fun episode to talk about a lot of things that I don't always get to dive into. So this has been a fantastic conversation.
I wouldn't be where I am here today, of course, not on this stage. However, not in my current business projection and my current business model without working with you.
What if leadership wasn't about titles, but trials? What if your breakthrough lay beyond fear? In First Light, the brave path to authentic leadership, embark on a journey of courage, truth, and purpose. Face the wolf. Hear first thunder. Wield the sword and shield. This is more than a book. It's a calling. Are you ready for First Light? In today's fast-paced financial landscape, access to capital is the key to success. At the heart of this revolution is Case Capital Markets, powered by SETI Case. Here, innovation and investment converge, creating a dynamic environment where businesses can thrive and reach new heights. Introducing Grant McGaw, the Senior Advisor at Case Capital Markets. Grant is a visionary leader, dedicated to connecting businesses with institutional capital and strategic funding. His expertise opens doors to game-changing investment opportunities, making him an invaluable partner for companies looking to scale and succeed in the competitive world of finance. With an impressive 25 years in technology, 9 years in healthcare, and 6 years in investment banking, Grant McGaw has a proven track record. He has successfully closed over $500 million in high-value transactions, seamlessly bridging technology, healthcare, and infrastructure with innovative financial solutions. His experience is a testament to his ability to drive success. Case Capital Markets offers businesses direct access to over 32,000 venture capital firms, private equity funds, family offices, and institutional investors. This network empowers mid-market companies with under $100 million in revenue to scale beyond their limits, unlocking unprecedented growth potential. Debt, equity, growth capital, public offerings. These are the building blocks of the future of capital access. Whether you're scaling a business, seeking investment, or exploring market expansion, Grant McGaw is your trusted partner. Together, you can unlock capital and create long-term financial success. The future belongs to those who take action. Are you ready to elevate your business? For decades, artificial intelligence was a silent force, known only to scholars, engineers, and the world's most powerful minds. Flickering images of clunky computers and early robots remind us of AI's humble beginnings. But in 2022, everything changed. The world met ChatGPT, a groundbreaking leap in AI technology that captured global attention and imagination. Social media exploded with headlines proclaiming, "AI is taking over, and the future is now." AI was no longer just a concept, it was a reality. But the evolution didn't stop there. Enter agentic AI, an intelligence that doesn't just answer questions but takes action. This new wave of AI is reshaping our world in ways we never imagined. Agentic AI represents a monumental shift. It is intelligence that reasons, makes decisions, and propels us forward without waiting for permission. Imagine AI that monitors a patient's vitals in a hospital room, generates real-time financial insights in a corporate boardroom, and seamlessly transitions customer service chats to human representatives. This is not the future. It is happening now. Mandeep Maini, speaking with unwavering conviction, emphasizes, this isn't the future. It's happening now. AI that makes decisions, AI that reasons, AI that moves us forward without waiting for permission. Her words echo the transformative power of agentic AI, urging us to recognize the profound changes unfolding before our eyes. Grant McGaw adds, this changes everything. Business, healthcare, our daily lives. Are we even ready for this? The impact of agentic AI is vast and far-reaching. From AI-generated stock market predictions to AI-assisted MRI scans, the technology is revolutionizing industries and challenging our understanding of control and autonomy. As we stand on the brink of this technological revolution, we must ask ourselves, will we control AI or will it control us? In a futuristic lab, a robotic eye processes trillions of data points. Join Grant McGaw and Mandeep Maini in this electrifying episode of the Follow the Brand podcast, where the past, present, and future of AI collide. The revolution is here. Are you listening?
That's a really important question and consideration when it comes to adoption. How will we go about it? A very important aspect of AI implementation, and that's where I focus my work on, is AI adoption in healthcare specifically, is preparing the workforce.
Hey everyone, it's Grant McGaw, CEO of 5-Star BDM and host of the award-winning Follow the Brand podcast and TV series, where I help you to build a 5-star brand that people will follow. My genius is personal brand development through intelligent communication and helping you achieve your business and career goals. I am a requested speaker on digital technology and brand development issues. I want to work with you to increase the value of your current opportunities while attracting new ones. Every one of you is unique, and we all share challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. As a super connector, I work with you as an executive coach to guide you along the complicated business and career development road, providing the enhancement tools and information you need to succeed. Together, I will help you succeed in today's challenging business climate. I will evaluate and measure your progress. Best of all, I am right alongside you every step of the way. Build the brand called you. Genius is coming. Tune in for our next show or click on our website at www.5starbdm/followthebrandtv. Thank you.